Okay, let's get started. So today we have an amazing speaker with us, which I will introduce in a few seconds. So yeah, can all of you see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect, thank you so much for the audio feedback. Welcome everyone. Welcome to Product Week, an event designed to help you level up your PM skills and career. This event is powered by ADPList, the biggest peer-to-peer learning platform in the world. If you want to learn, get mentored from the best tech talent in the world, discuss ideas and network, ADPList is a perfect match for you. We are 100% free. In this event, you will get a chance to win an Apple Watch. For Product Week, we're giving away an Apple Watch, kindly sponsored by the Product Academy. All you have to do is share what you've learned from our sessions on LinkedIn and Twitter. Tag the speaker and ADPList. Details will be shared in the chat section. Also, just to make sure we can run a smooth session, here go a few housekeeping rules. Please keep your cameras on at all times. Please use your real name on Zoom and Slido. Presentation will be 30 minutes followed up by a 15-minute Q&A. For Q&A, we are using Slido to manage questions. Scan the QR code behind me or click on the link in the chat where you can ask all of your questions. Please remember to send questions with your name since anonymous questions won't be considered. You can also upvote each other's questions. This session will be recorded and we will share the recording as soon as it is available. Please register in our landing page to get the recording. Now I'm going to introduce our amazing speaker for this masterclass today, Chaochao Zhu. Is going to be talking to us about, can introverts make great product managers? Chaochao is the Senior Director, Global Head of Fraud Risk Model Products at Visa. Her bio says that she's currently the Global Head of Fraud and Risk Model Products at Visa, responsible for 400 million revenue portfolio of machine learning solutions to combat card payment fraud. Before Visa, she held a variety of leadership roles in business analytics and digital product development. Chaochao holds an MBA from Harvard Business School and a bachelor's first-class honors from National University of Singapore. So now I will stop sharing my screen and make sure Chaochao is unmuted and we can start her presentation right now.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Please let me know if you can see the presentation now.
Yep.
Beautiful. Let me just put it in presentation mode. Okay. For some reason.
I think, Helen, this is fine.
This is pretty fine? Okay, great.
Yeah, it's showing up pretty big even on my small iPad screen, and yeah, I think we can. Yeah, I just need to rely on you to scroll down one slide by one slide.
Perfect, you got it. Let's get going. Just let me know when.
Okay. I think I can get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Chaochao. I'm really excited to be speaking to you about the whole topic of introversion, and especially, when it comes to the career objective and experiences as a product manager. Feel free to pause me anytime for questions. I know we have 15 minutes dedicated to Q&A, but very much want this to be a conversation than a speech, which I'm not really good at. So here we go. Helen, do you mind flipping to the next page? Yeah.
You got it done.
Yeah. All right. So first, a little bit about myself. So these are pictures and logos representing my life journey so far. On the bottom left, that's my hometown. I'm from Wuhan of China. I think nowadays everybody around the world probably knows where is Wuhan. But whenever I have a chance, I want to do some advertising for my hometown. As you can see, you know, my hometown is really beautiful. It has the biggest college graduate population every year, as like it's a very big college town in China. And the picture shows Wuhan University in spring, full of cherry blossoms and drawing big crowds of tourists. For those who haven't been following a lot of entertainment news, the latest Mulan movie was also led by a Wuhanese woman. Her name's Liu Yifei. And so I like to joke that, you know, my hometown's really good at producing strong and intelligent women. And you can make that connection any way you like. Right now, I'm living outside of Washington, D.C., hence the picture from House of Cards. That's a Netflix series many people like, together with my 3-year-old King Charles Cavalier dog. Her name is Yue Yue. And he's very, very clingy. He's right here at my feet. In terms of my academic and professional journey, yeah, he's very cute. He has bigger eyes than mine. I got my first degree in financial engineering from National University of Singapore. So that's Singapore is where I moved to when I turned 15, kind of my second home. And then I worked at Singapore Airlines for almost 4 years through quite a rotation of different roles, including new market development, network planning, corporate strategy, before finding my way to the US. So I went to Harvard for business school, as mentioned. It didn't involve any mathematics at all. So when it comes to my education, I like to say my college degree was all math using my left brain, and then my graduate degree was all using my right brain, talking about, you know, high level social, economic, and geopolitical issues. I also spent 6 years at Capital One before joining Visa almost 2 years ago. Capital One also had a variety of roles in credit risk management, digital product development, and fraud risk management. Currently, I lead a team of about 10 product managers and almost 40 data scientists to design machine learning solutions for Visa's payment network. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I'm going to come back to talk a little bit more about different phases of my journey and how that applies to my growth as an introvert in this field. Okay, Helen, next slide. Yeah, since we're here talking about introversion, I guess we need to introduce the topic, right? You may wonder, hey, what does it really mean by being an introvert, and what is introversion? I copy-pasted a definition from American Psychological Association. Here is focusing on a preference. So the keyword here is preference for inner life over outer world of things. I've definitely seen other definitions, you know, focused on where you draw your energy from. So for example, if you like to draw energy from external stimulus, then you're probably more likely to be an extrovert. If you're like me, who likes to recharge and draw energy from internal activities, introspection, that probably means you are more introvert leaning. I think definition aside, the most important thing to me is to recognize that, number one, there's no right or wrong when it comes to personality. There is a lot of like natural tendencies and preferences on things that you want to be self-aware and make accommodations for yourself. And then secondly, the second thing is that there's a spectrum. So for example, when I took my Myers-Briggs personality test, my introversion is actually 53%, which means I'm kind of right in the middle. I'm only 3% more introverts than extroverts. So just recognize that there's nothing super absolute and we all evolve. Yeah, Helen, next slide. Yeah. I guess we are back in the question since we're asking, can introverts make great product managers? There must be some negative stereotypes associated with being introverts. I'm not sure about the audience hometown, but I gather it's a global audience. For those who are not as familiar, being introvert is definitely stereotyped against a lot more in the US, especially in the US corporate environment. So here are some examples of negative stereotypes I've seen and heard. And I think as fellow introverts, we all need to unite and smash all these stereotypes. To be honest with you, when I grew up, I think I was shy. So this stereotype on me definitely applied. And I probably did not like a lot of people. So I would admit to that as well. But again, people change. I definitely have changed. And then, a lot of this kind of sound bites really hold introverts back. So let's definitely, prove them wrong, especially when it comes to the last point, which bothers me a lot around, can introverts rise to being good leaders? Definitely a resounding yes, we all can be good leaders. There are so many different types of leadership style and where the leadership comes from. Very often people just simply associate leadership with power or position or usage of power. That's definitely wrong. Leaders can be expert leaders. They can be cross-functional leaders in the case of product management role. There can be people leaders. So to me, leader really means a person who generates a lot of impact and bring out the best in, other people around you. So by that definition, I definitely feel introverts have a lot of room to grow and to, really shine as great leaders. Next slide, Helen. Yeah. So yeah, I think first and foremost, I want to share a few stories of my introvert journey before diving into product management specifically. I kind of alluded to what leadership is all about. And when I was growing up, when I was younger, I definitely had a lot of self-defeating thoughts and self-imposed constraints that really held me back. I probably did not think that much about leadership until I came to the US and realized, hey, I think there's a lot more I can do to change the world, to change the community. But how do I grow as a leader? And I have to say, as an introvert and a diehard introvert, there were 3 phases of growth spurts. So for people who have children, you probably have heard the terminology of growth spurts. These are periods of really rapid growth. So to me, these were also periods where, I somehow randomly challenged my assumptions. I tried something different and discovered a totally different side of my personality or potential. So I think the first period was really when I was in business school. And as I mentioned, my business school was all focused on leadership, change the world with like zero amount of math. And raising hand was really challenging for introverts and as an Asian person in general. I think what I found out was that, there was one class about the lack of social economic mobility in the US. And I raised my hand and made a point about my journey, coming from kind of below poverty line by American standard in China, where we were, in Boston, and all the sacrifices my family, my mother in particular made. And that was a beautiful story. And it took 2 generations to tell a story of progress and social economic mobility. And that comment made me cry in class. And that comment was voted one of the 10 most powerful comments in the whole year. And it made me realize, making your voice heard is not really about inviting attention. It's really about, sharing what you care about your community that other people are not aware of, your story. So you're really creating value and adding insights to people around you, rather than doing something for self-serving reasons. I think another growth spurt I had was when I started leading a team. This is not to say all leaders have to be people managers, but I had self-doubts there because I was thinking, hey, I'm a Chinese woman speaking with an accent, and I was managing 3 white boys, let's just put it this way, one of them was pretty hard to manage. So what credibility did I have? What I found out later, despite all the challenges, was that, hey, when you care about the people around you, you are accountable for their success and you do everything possible to help them succeed, people can feel it. And whether you are an interesting person who knows the best dance clubs in town to take your team to, or a rather, not very interesting person like me who never knew any good restaurants, people don't care about that. So that deep sense of care was able to keep the team together and not a single person left when I was there. I think the last moment of epiphany, and this was with my prior company as well, was that, hey, it really, as introverts, sometimes you feel lonely, but you also get so much satisfaction by, charting your own course, because you may land somewhere you totally have never imagined before. So for myself, I was always looking for new problems to solve, unmet need to meet, and that's kind of a little bit of a product intuition when you're constantly looking for unmet need from people. So I realized, hey, there's really little resources and discussion or awareness as the experiences and career trajectory as introverts. So again, for our international audience in the US, most of the major companies have their employee resource groups. They have resource groups for women, for LGBT, for Asian, African American, Hispanic. But I haven't seen one that's for introverts, even though we have a lot of, stereotypes stacking against us. So I went on to create a speaker series inviting a lot of executives who self-identified as introverts, and got more than 6,000 attendance over 4 sessions. That created a lot of impact, a lot of buzz, external and internal press. And that made me really realize, hey, I can generate so much more impact if I just try a different course. Next slide, Helen. Yeah. Okay, so finally coming to the crux of this topic. You may ask, okay, Chaochao, you told me a lot of your stories and this and that, as Asian, as an introvert, as a leader, evolving leader. So how does that apply to product management? Is it relevant? I would say leadership and product management are really, really well connected. Because if you think about it, product manager by definition is a leader. It's cross-functional leader. So a lot of the lessons and maybe struggles you experience pursuing a leadership path are exactly the same type of struggles and experiences you would encounter as a product manager, as a junior product manager, as a senior product manager, so on and so forth. And let's dive right in. Next slide. Yeah. So first, before I go into the challenges, I do want to, okay, I think we lost the screen, Helen. Yeah. Yeah. Do want to give folks here some reasons for optimism. Unfortunately, there has not been a lot of academic research or literature in the space of how introverts operate as product managers. But from my own experience so far, and I've been in this field for the past 4 years, I definitely observed a lot of typical traits from introverted people that position them really well for the requirements and expectation of product management. One such important example is the whole inclination to making rigorous decisions, to rigorously make decisions. If you think about a lot of the frameworks we use in product management, in product prioritization, for example, RISE, if you think about all these tools that are designed and codified for performance measurements, such as A/B testing, they are all examples of, really well-established decision-making tools that are rigorous, that are based on analytics, that are based on very well thought through designs and measurements instead of, a gut decision or whoever that has the loudest voice in the room. So that really helps us. The second thing that I think really helps us is that a lot of people may feel, hey, introverts probably do not feel that comfortable speaking in front of a big audience or, go around like a social butterfly. But there has been a phenomenon where introverts connect really well one-on-one and in small groups. And that really helps us because as a product manager, especially in the early phase of your career, you'll be working with, hey, one sprint team or one agile team or 2 agile teams. And that's gonna be your village of the same 12 people. And building that strong, authentic relationship is our forte. And that's all you need. So that really helps us. I think the last one I want to mention, but definitely the most significant one to me, and this is what helps us stand out as a product leader and visionary, is our inclination for deep human empathy and human insight. So today, I no longer work in a product category that requires customer research because it's a machine learning product. It's just a score, a number. But when I was in my last role, CreditWise, which is a free credit monitoring tool in the US, is very mission driven. It was designed to help educate the mass public about credit scores and how to improve your credit score, which is of paramount importance in the US. 3 out of I think, yeah, 4 out of all 4 product leaders on CreditWise were introverts and female. So, it's probably a little bit of a very quick conclusion or correlation to jump to, but definitely have seen a clear trend that, we can really, really differentiate ourselves by having and bringing deep human insight. And sometimes you'll be shocked how spot on your insight and your intuition is when it comes to anticipating customer reaction and stuff like that. Okay, next slide, Ellen. Right. Okay, so let's get really candid about the more challenging topic of, hey, what kind of challenges do you experience as an introvert in this field, and what kind of coping mechanism or tactics you have? So I would say, broadly speaking, there are 3 different areas where I want to share some tactics and personal experiences or personal tools that worked for myself. The first one will be just simply breaking into this field. And then secondly, I'm going to touch on how do you manage a cross-functional team on a day-to-day basis. And lastly, how do you advance as a product leader? So first thing first, how to break into this field. Well, for myself, it was really random. But I think up until very recently, the job search process to become a product manager is largely unstructured. What I mean by that is that, before a lot of the big companies introduce their associate product manager programs where they don't require any experience in products, they just hire a lot of kids from college. You actually need to network a lot to get into products. I was definitely not a networker, but my heart was also not that set on products. So I would say the first thing to definitely consider is, understand yourself. Is product really what you want to do? Or, dissect it a little bit, dissect the day-to-day experience and the aspiration of product manager a little bit to understand what you really want. To be totally frank, product managers are paid well. The tech industry in general, especially in the US, is paying very, very well. But if money and prestige is the only thing you care about, you don't need to be a product manager. I can tell you, in the Silicon Valley, data scientists and engineers are paid even more than product managers. And there are a lot of introverts there. So you'll find your game. For myself, I really found my way into product management naturally, because you probably could see when I first talked about my professional journey, even though I moved around from country to country and I moved around from roles to roles, there has always been a theme. And the Chaochao theme has always been operating at the intersection of data-driven decision-making and innovation. So what drew me to product is really to do that on a daily basis. Like, if there's no innovation for your product, I think you should quit. And then, increasingly the product feature prioritization and decision-making is data-driven. So that plays to our strength well. When it comes to handling unstructured recruiting, I think one thing that I have seen success in a lot of the candidates I interviewed is that you may want to first go into an adjacent field. So for example, at Visa, it's challenging to attract product managers from other, big tech companies. So we look for consultants, ex-consultants ex-business analysts, ex-program managers from other companies or even within BISA. So just be prepared if you want to break into product eventually and you're a little bit far away from it, you may need to take a couple of steps and just to be patient about it. I think when it comes to the interview process, that's probably the part that could be the most taxing to us introverts who naturally do not like to brag about ourselves and do all that, showmanship thing. I think this is the place where no choice, you have to show your energy. Hopefully you look for a role, you are disciplined about looking for roles that really suit your interest. The industry this role is in, the kind of products and experiences this role creates. And if that's the case, I hope your energy and your passion for the product and for the problem and for the type of customers you want to serve will show up naturally. And that will position you really well to tell your story, to tell the interviewer, hey, why I'd like to jump onto your bandwagon and why I'm the most appropriate for this role. So now assume you have gotten the job, your dream job as a product manager. And let's talk a little bit about, your day-to-day, how to be successful on your day-to-day. Next slide. Gosh, okay, I think this is probably the most defining question for a product manager, right? Which is, how do you manage a team of people who are cross-functional and you are not their boss? So you're kind of acting as a leader because you are creating impact, you're driving results through others. A few things to be aware of. The most important thing is communication. Especially for junior product managers, you'll probably hear communication is the most core skill to have in a product manager. If you ask me, hey, this engineer and a product manager and a designer, what exactly is the processing or value add the product manager brings to the table is that communication, constantly communicating to drive results, to hold yourself and others accountable, to drive everybody to work towards the same goal and direction. I think when it comes to this kind of cross-functional constant communication on a daily basis, there are a lot of tools that help us, even just Slack or emails or IM. They kind of help to increase the speed of exchange of information, but it really helps us, hiding behind the screen, and you don't need to do all kinds of, hey, smiling and whatever. So use those tools, use those technology tools as much as possible. They're at your disposal would be my first advice. I think the second thing that's very important is, remember introverts are very often very advantaged when it comes to building close one-on-one relationships. This is very crucial for you to have that very close bond with your engineers, with your designers, with the marketers. I know one person in the audience today used to be on my team back on CreditWise, and I was texting her to share with her, hey, I wanted to use your story. So the reason why I wanted to use her story is that her first job was actually a recruiter in China, but through that period of her professional experience, which seemed to have no relationship with business or product management at all, she picked up this habit of constant communication and really intentionally investing in developing relationship and rapport with every individual. She did so well on credit-wise, being a convert as from a business analysis job family. And I think, you know, that tells you a thing or two about, you know, how it is possible to drive success for yourself and success for your team as a constant communicator and as a diligent relationship builder, one-on-one, you know, that suits your style. By the way, she's not introvert, she's more like a extrovert in disguise. I think the last piece that's really important to help you succeed on your day-to-day is, this is related to communication skill, but brings it up to a totally next level, will be you need to help others recognize and respect how you make decisions. So earlier on, we mentioned, you know, our decision making is going to be more analytics driven through a rigorous framework. And there are a lot of frameworks in the product management field you can use. They're going to be very handy to you. Thinking about the decision making on a day-to-day basis. As a product manager, you will encounter a million decisions to make every day. And it's not just making decisions, it's also communicating decision. And it's also about, you know, kind of the probing and pulling out all the input from your cross-functional teams so that they felt heard and they felt they contributed to this decision in a collaborative way. And to do that, you know, as introverts, you may not want to pound the table. Yeah, that's not the right thing to do, but you can diligently and calmly probe, you know, all the different constraints and you know, and goals from each team. And you can share that out, paraphrase, making sure everybody, no matter which function they're from, they understand our common goal, they understand all the constraints, and so they feel good. Our shared decision is a good decision. So I like to joke, hey, a lot of the work product managers do is literally translation. And I like to joke about that, about my current job, because a lot of my data science partners are from China, my home country. So like literally my job is translation, literally and figuratively. So that's challenging, but that's also fun. So the last thing I want to touch on a little bit when it comes to not just surviving, but also thriving as a product manager. Next slide, please, Ellen. Is, okay, now you have gotten the job, you kind of established your rhythm on a day-to-day basis, but how do you advance? How do you grow as a product manager? Here, I have also found a few angles and mindsets that has helped me so far, and hopefully you can find these angles of use to you. The first thing is not that uniquely related to product management. Leading by example. What I mean by that is that a lot of the product managers, myself included, were kind of a T-shaped talent, which means you have a broad base of skill sets and knowledge that help you to have a grasp of context of multiple fields, multiple functions. For example, I know a little bit about, you know, architecture design, a little bit about data engineering, a little bit about data science, a lot about business, a little bit about design thinking. But the place I spike in is business analytics, my strategy, kind of like industry landscape and competitive analysis. And for the case of machine learning products, it's really hard to measure and demonstrate value to customers. And I developed this whole framework with my team, and we set up the pricing framework, return on investment framework for our clients to understand what kind of value they're getting out of our products given the price they pay. So this is what I brought to the table. That's something I spec in. That's something I can teach my team. I cannot teach them data engineering. I only know a little. But they in turn are able to, produce this rippling effect of this knowledge by building best practices and presentation and training to the rest of the department. So the whole department benefits from, how to set up a pricing framework based on return on investment to our clients. So this way you can kind of establish a brand for yourself in a really effective and kind of a pleasurable way, because this is something you like and this is something you're naturally good at. The second thing is definitely, even as you have gotten into the product management field, you need to constantly recruit. And what I mean by that is you're not necessarily on the job market, but you need to plant a seed where you find might be a promising place for you to go next as your next role. So this is the place where, introverts really spike in establishing that rapport one-on-one. I like to joke, I'm really good at smelling out my guy or my girl, like at executive level people who I really resonate with who are likely to take a liking on me or will consider me as a younger version of themselves. So that kind of intentional, thoughtful, but limited scale one-on-one networking helps you to plant the seed, and they will remember you when they have a role open up. I think the last thing I will mention when it comes to career progression is that, hey, remember, product manager is a general management job function, which means you are not a specialist in anything. And as a product manager grows, he or she grows into a product leader, which is equivalent to a general manager. And general manager means he or she is able to solve problems in a multifaceted way, from a business angle, from an operational angle, from a technology angle, whatever. And that person can come from very different fields or paths. So for example, yesterday, I just heard from a guy, a VP who's in a research lab that, one of the most important newly promoted SVP of products actually came from technology. And then he spent many years running a regional office, in the Middle East before coming back and took up this global product leadership role. So you probably have heard the buzzwords. There's no longer such a thing as a career path or career ladder, which is a straight line. You need to find your career ladders, and there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of learning as well by, going sideways, try something different. Yeah, I think we can, the next slide is probably one of the wrap-up slides, Helen. Yeah, so I think before I close up, a few book recommendations. I would boldly stereotype a lot of you are probably similar to me who like to read. Not a lot of literature about introverts in product management, but there has been an explosion of books, podcasts, videos, and blogs about introverts in general. And then in general, I just find it useful to read up on product management books, OKR, stuff like that. And I also find it useful just to read books on psychology at large, because that helps you to understand how your brain works, how the human emotion and experiences shape out. Yeah, I think last slide, Helen, let's go to last slide. Yeah, so I think I'm done with my monologue, and I'm kind of glad we are on the last page. And I would leave you with a closing quote, I think from one of the books I recommended on the previous page. So the quote says, "Remember, we introverts have brilliant inner lights. Embrace yours. Never be afraid to let it shine and bring it wholeheartedly to your leadership role. Others will naturally follow you." Yeah, so I think I'm open for a few questions, and yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Chaochao. I can definitely identify with many things as an introvert myself. So I know that a lot of people might as well have identified. We have a lot of questions, so let's get to it. Since we have upvoted questions, I will consider the anonymous questions because they have a lot of votes. So someone asked, how have you felt limited by your introversion? Say, you've dreamt of closing big deals for your company, but you couldn't even move past pitching your ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that question definitely resonates, and I will be honest with my answer, but also give you some glimpses of hope. Definitely have felt limited by my introversion before. In one of my previous roles, my big boss, my SVP was this very powerful, very tall, 6 feet tall white woman who came from McKinsey, who's like your all-American girl. I'm using all the stereotypes, who likes to talk using her own words, and I never quite measured up. I always felt very uncomfortable, and I especially felt uncomfortable when she never seemed to care that much about my attention to detail and my desire to be accurate with the numbers. She always asked me to deprioritize those things and prioritize on owning the room, make people feel excited. And I thought, oh, that's really superficial. Anyways, long story short, I didn't like my experience under her at all, and I moved on to CreditWise, and now I'm at Visa. But what that helped me understand is that you need to find your own people. You need to find your gang. You're kind of like going uphill by mingling with a bunch of people who share totally different values and who do not see the sweetness and all the shining gold from a version of you who is authentic and just being true to yourself. But I think what I have found to be helpful, kind of faking a little bit, since the example here used is pitching deals, is that, hey, I really remind myself for the next half an hour or 1 hour, I'm going to show my own on-stage version. My current role is pretty external and client-facing. And I also had roles before that were focused on business development and finding partnership opportunities. So I can, pump up all my energy for an hour, for half an hour, but I make sure I block off the time to recharge and unwind after that, and very often all by myself. So I take care of myself that way. Okay.
Thank you so much. Looking for the next one. a big part of success seems to be relationship building, especially with upper manager. Aside from act more extroverted, what advice do you have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't even recommend acting extrovert, except hopefully the rare situations where you really need to put on the on-stage persona, which to me is limited to very big, high-stake presentations or client-facing engagements. I would say when it comes to relationship building, I'm a little bit more selective. I know there are a lot of extroverts who have all the energy to meet 100 people per night, and and they find that process energizing. I do not. I find the process energy sapping. So what I do is to kind of like rationalize that activity by either, hey, if I'm going into a networking party, I kind of set my success criteria as, meeting 5 people I want to follow up on, that like I'm done for the day. Or, in my daily business, I make closer but higher quality connections. So I still have all the relationship with my prior employer, SVP level. So, since we're talking about relationship with senior people, that's possible because guess what? A lot of them are introverts as well. And if you use that as a common ground, as a way to bond, they'll remember you, because as of now in the US, people don't normally talk about it. So if you show the vulnerability to suss it out, to connect on that, you'll actually be making great friends, high quality friends, with important people. That's all possible.
Amazing. Yeah, I think focusing on quality is a really good point. Thank you so much for saying that. I'm sure that a lot of people in the audience can take a lot of value out of that. Next question was asked by Mia Salas. She asked, you mentioned related fields. Do you have advice for transitioning from design, content design, UX writing, product design into product management?
I kind of feel I'm not qualified to answer that question because I have never been a designer. I was more from a business analysis and strategy background. But if I were to take a stab at it, since I've worked with designers before, maybe content designer, copywriter, UX, UI, and also design researchers. I definitely felt, immediately they bring to the table very rigorous decision-making process and framework to prioritize features to answer customer need. So that is a given. I think what ex-designers may want to pay a little bit more attention to is to show your analytical side of things. So, if you can do a little bit of a coding exercise, if you work with a business analyst or product manager to put a business case together, a competitive analysis together, that definitely kind of expands your portfolio of the skill sets that's expected as a product manager.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm sure all of the designers can learn from that. Next, we have Cecilia, who asked, what are the struggles being the minority, Asian, a woman, and a leader in a company with mainly white people and male dominant? How did you cope with that?
Yeah, I think that's a really bold question. In the US recently, there has been a really hot word called intersectionality. And what that means is that usually a lot of the people, minorities, they are disadvantaged by more than just one dimension of minority status. So for myself, introvert is kind of a minority here in the US. It's probably not a minority personality in Asia, but being Asian here in the US has been tough. Being a woman, a little bit tough as well. But if I were to rank, I actually feel over the course of the last 8 years, 10 years in the US, being Asian is the toughest of all. So let's recognize that and give yourself a round of applause for being Asian, being, you know, introvert, minority, and in corporate America. How did I cope with that? The kind of struggles I had were probably a little bit different. I think as an Asian, as a woman, and also as a very, very gung-ho, very, very, you know, success-driven woman, my struggle was that I tended to overcompensate for my Asianness a little bit too far. So I think a lot of the feedback and the troubles I have gotten into in the past were, hey, Chaochao, you were too pushy. I think one of my male managers back then even considered me too much of a nuisance, that I, you know, emailed him 5 times in one evening. So to cope with that, to cope with my tendency to overcompensate, to show too much power, because I have this desire to succeed and want to break stereotypes as Asian or as a woman, I remind myself my own bias as a human first. So first and foremost, I recognize my bias is overcharging, is too action oriented. So I try to pull my back from my first order bias as a human. And then I also take advantage of my minority status. So, you know, since I started this Introverts in Leadership series in Capital One, you know, that kind of helped me establish a brand. And I got sought out for speaking engagement or, you know, other appearances. And I used those opportunities to play up the unique qualities of my minority status. I mean, hopefully it doesn't only serve my own my own benefit, but also helps to amplify the voice of the community. But I definitely feel in today's environment, if you use your voice to talk about the experiences and struggles of your community more, you get recognized, you get seen, and that may open doors for you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of people can identify and just resonate with a lot of what you're saying. So I want to thank you in the name of the audience. Next question is from Chloe, and this will be our last question because unfortunately we're running out of time. So Chloe asks, as an introvert who doesn't like public attention, how would you make others aware of your achievement over time, especially people you don't work closely with?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. From a tactical standpoint, there are many introverts on my team, and I ask them to use a tracker to keep track of their accomplishments. Doesn't have to be as granular as everyday tasks, but things that they felt really proud of, things that, got a little bit of a viral effect. For example, another person on another team asked for the presentation. Things that really made their hearts sing. I just asked them to keep track of it on Excel. Because guess what? That helps me to remember. And when they go look for next job, I hope they never leave, but I will leave, and so will they. They still have all these memories of success stories fresh in their mind. I think another thing that's really helpful is to find somebody else who sings the praises for you. So for example, kind of mentioned, I had a lot of close relationships with mentors who are way more powerful than me, and a couple of sponsors who will be able to kind of tell your story, put your name on the table in important talent management meetings that you are not included to. So relying on those people who like you, who really see the potential in you and have a authentic connection with you, but they are in position of greater power to sing you praises and to connect you with opportunities you otherwise do not have access to, will be a great way. One funny story is that, I mentioned I like to overcompensate my Asianness and my introversion. So sometimes I tend to be a little bit braggy. And at one time, this great manager of mine, he put me in and asked me, hey, like, don't be like that. I will do that for you. I will do the promoting Chaochao for you. And that will be more effective than you having to stress about self-promotion. So finding that ally really helps.